Years passed like falling leaves, quiet, steady, full of change. The tree from the Zenthari heart world now grew on Earth too, its silver branches stretching toward the sky in Ohio, its roots drinking from both soil and starlight. Children played beneath it, human and Zenthari alike, their laughter weaving through the chiming leaves like music. Lily Carter walked among them daily, barefoot as always, her hair streaked with gray, her steps slower but no less sure. She was no longer called the Barefoot Sovereign. Now people simply said Lily with a softness in their voice like her name was a promise. She lived in a small house near the base of the tree, its walls lined with books from Earth and scrolls from Zenthar, its shelves filled with mismatched mugs and carved wooden animals made by students. She still baked bread every Sunday. She still missed her dog, though now she had a Zenthari skyfox named Ember who curled at her feet and purred like wind through reeds. The blade of Aelthar rested in the garden, embedded in a stone shaped like a hand. It no longer flared or sang. It simply was, calm, present like an old friend who had seen enough battles and now preferred quiet mornings. But peace, as Lily knew well, is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of care, and care must be tended, like a garden. One spring morning, a young human girl named Maya came running to Lily's porch, breathless, eyes wide. "They found something," she gasped. "In the deep ice of Europa, it's singing." Lily's chest tightened, not with fear but with recognition. The blade had grown warm again the night before, just for a moment. She went to the observation dome at the joint Earth-Zenthari research station. Scientists crowded around a view screen showing a probe's feed from beneath Europa's frozen crust. There, in a cavern of blue ice, floated a structure, not built but grown. It pulsed with soft light, shaped like a spiral shell, humming a tone so low it vibrated in the bones. "It's not Zenthari," said Dr. Nina Cho, a xenobiologist, "and it's not human. It's older than both." Commander Rail, now retired but still sharp-eyed, stood beside Lily. "It feels familiar," he murmured. "Because it's calling to the same thing the blade did," Lily said. "Not to power, to memory." They prepared a small submersible. Lily insisted on going alone. "It's not a threat," she told the worried council. "It's a question." Beneath the ice, the water was black and still. The submersible glided silently toward the spiral. As it drew near, the humming grew clearer. Not a song of words, but of feeling. Loneliness. Waiting. Hope. Lily stepped out onto a ledge of ice, barefoot, the cold biting but not painful. She walked toward the spiral. It opened as she approached, like a flower greeting the sun. Inside, the walls shimmered with images, not of war or glory, but of small moments. A creature tending a garden under 3 moons. Another teaching a child to count stars. A group sharing food after a storm, then a voice not in her ears but in her mind. "You remember?" "I do," Lily whispered. "Others forgot," it said. "They built walls. They named themselves superior. They silenced the small voices. We hid. We waited. We hoped someone would remember that life is not about being the loudest. It is about being kind." Lily understood. This was not a weapon, not a relic. It was a seed. A library of gentleness buried when the galaxy grew cruel. "What do you need?" she asked. "To be heard." Back on the surface, Lily did not call for armies or scientists. She called for storytellers, musicians, teachers, gardeners. Together they built a listening station around the spiral, not to study it, but to sit with it, to let its song seep into their bones. Within weeks, the spiral began to bloom. Vines of light spread across Europa's ice, carrying its song into space. Other hidden seeds awoke, on dead moons, in asteroid cores, in the quiet corners of forgotten worlds. The galaxy, long hardened by war and pride, began to soften. On Earth, schools added a new subject, gentle history, the study of small acts that changed the world. On Zenthar, the High Council replaced its throne room with a circle of chairs, because no one should speak from above. Lily watched it all from her porch, sipping tea that tasted faintly of stardust, but change is never smooth. A faction rose in the outer colonies, humans and Zenthari alike, who called themselves the Pure. They claimed the old ways were weakness. They wanted order, strength, control. They saw the singing spiral as a corruption. "Feelings make us slow," their leader, a former general named Torin, declared. "We must cut the softness from our hearts." They attacked the Europa station, not with bombs, but with silence fields. devices that drained sound, emotion, memory. The spiral dimmed. The vines withered. Lily felt it like a wound. She did not call for war. She called for a walk. "We will go to Europa," she told the council. Not with weapons, with voices. Hundreds joined her, then thousands. Humans, Zinthari, and others from worlds newly awakened by the spiral's song. They traveled not in warships, but in ships filled with music, with stories, with pots of soil and seeds. When they arrived, Tauren's forces stood ready, their silence fields humming. Lily stepped onto the ice alone, barefoot. No blade, no armor, just her. "You cannot win with silence," she said, her voice carrying on the thin air. "Because silence is not peace. Peace has noise. Peace has crying babies and barking dogs and old people arguing about tea. Peace is messy, and that's why it's real." Then she began to sing, not a battle hymn, not a spell, just a lullaby her mother used to sing. Simple, off-key, full of love. Others joined. A Zinthari elder hummed a harvest chant. A child clapped a rhythm. A musician played a flute carved from moonwood. The sound was imperfect, uneven, alive. The silence fields flickered, because silence cannot hold against truth. Tauren's soldiers lowered their devices. One by one they began to cry. Not from defeat, but from remembering. Remembering birthdays. First steps. Last goodbyes. Tauren himself fell to his knees, hands over his ears. Not to block the sound, but to feel it in his bones. "I forgot," he whispered. "I forgot what it felt like to be held." The spiral bloomed brighter than ever. Afterward, Tauren asked to tend the garden on Europa. "I want to learn how to grow something instead of breaking it," he said. Lily agreed. Years turned to decades. Lily's steps grew slower. Her hands shook sometimes, but her eyes never lost their light. One evening, as she sat beneath the tree with Ember curled at her feet, the blade of Aelthar gave one last gentle pulse, not a warning. A thank you. That night she dreamed of her backyard on Earth, age 6, holding her broken robot. But this time she fixed it. Not with tools, but with a promise. "I will always care." When the sun rose, Lily was gone. Not dead. Not lost. Just gone, like a breath returning to the wind. They found her sandals by the tree, her favorite mug on the porch, and in the garden. The blade of Aelthar had turned to stone. Its light faded, its work done. But the tree sang louder than ever. And in classrooms across the galaxy, children learned her name. Not as a hero, but as a reminder. They said only royals could touch the blade. But the blade knew better. It knew that the greatest power was not in ruling, but in showing up barefoot with an open heart, ready to listen. And Lily Carter had done that better than anyone, so the story did not end. It grew, like a tree, like a song, like a promise kept. Peace settled over the Zinthari Empire like morning mist, soft and steady. The tree Lily had planted in the Imperial Gardens grew taller each day, its silver leaves chiming in rhythms that matched the pulse of the planet itself. People came from every corner of the empire just to sit beneath its branches. Some came to heal, some came to think. Others came simply to feel the warmth of shared silence that was not empty, but full. Lily lived in a small house near the garden's edge. It had no guards, no grand doors, just a wooden porch and a pot of earth where she grew herbs from earth seeds she had carried in her pocket since leaving home. She still wore her gray jumpsuit most days, though now it was patched with Zinthari silk and stitched with tiny stars by children who visited her after school. She taught them human words. Hello, thank you, I'm sorry. And they taught her how to weave light into bracelets that glowed when you were happy. But peace, as Lily had learned, is never the end of the story. One evening, as she sat on her porch watching twin moons rise, the blade of Aelthar stirred in its stand by the door. It did not flare or hum loudly. It simply grew warm like a cat stretching in the sun. Then a feeling came, not a vision, not a voice, but a pull. Deeper than before. Not toward danger, but toward something lost. She told Commander Rail the next morning. He had become her closest friend, though he still bowed when he entered her home out of habit more than duty. The blade is calling you again, he said, not a question. It feels different this time, Lily replied. Not like a threat, more like a memory. Elder Voss was summoned. Now old even by Zinthari standards, his skin had turned translucent, his veins glowing like faint constellations. He listened quietly, his silver eyes distant. There is a place, he said at last. spoken of only in the oldest songs. The cradle of echoes. It is said to be where the first thought in the universe was born. No one has found it. Many have tried. All vanished. Why would the blade lead her there? Rael asked. Because, Foss said, looking at Lily. Perhaps the blade was not just made. Perhaps it was remembered. They prepared the whisper's echo once more. This time, Lily asked for only two things: a vial of water from Earth's last clean river, and a recording of her mother's voice saying her name. She carried both in a small pouch around her neck. The journey took them beyond the dead zones, past the edge of mapped space, into a region where stars did not shine but whispered. The ship's instruments failed one by one. Navigation became guesswork. Time stretched and folded. Lily slept little, guided only by the warmth of the blade and the quiet song in her heart. Then, they saw it. Not a planet, not a station, but a sphere of pure thought, a place where reality was shaped by memory. It hung in the void like a pearl, glowing with soft white light. As they drew closer, images flickered around it. Childhood homes, first kisses, last goodbyes, all woven together in a tapestry of feeling. This is not a place, Rael said, awed. It is a moment, frozen. Lily stepped onto the surface alone. Her bare feet touched nothing solid, yet she did not fall. She stood on a floor of light, surrounded by echoes of lives long gone. Voices swirled around her, some laughing, some crying, some singing lullabies in languages no one spoke anymore. At the center of it all floated a single object. A mirror, but it did not show her reflection. It showed a child, small, human, with messy brown hair and wide eyes. The child was Lily, age 6, standing in her backyard on Earth holding a broken toy robot, tears on her cheeks. Her mother knelt beside her, not fixing the toy, just holding her hand and saying, "It's okay to be sad. Feelings matter." Lily's breath caught. She had forgotten that moment. The mirror shifted. Now it showed Elder Voss as a young scholar, trembling as he touched a forbidden scroll. Commander Rael as a boy, hiding food for a starving street creature. The Empress as a girl, crying because she could not save a dying bird. The cradle of echoes did not show greatness. It showed truth. And then the blade spoke, not in sound but in understanding. It had not chosen Lily because she was strong or smart or brave. It had chosen her because, at her core, she never stopped believing that feelings mattered. That a broken toy, a dying bird, a whispered, "I'm sorry," these were not small things. They were the foundation of everything. The mirror rippled. A new image formed, not of the past, but of what could be. She saw humans and Zenthari building cities together, not with perfect symmetry, but with crooked towers and gardens spilling over balconies. She saw children teaching each other songs. She saw arguments that ended in hugs. She saw a future not of order, but of care. And in the center of it all stood the tree from the Imperial Gardens, now grown so large its branches touched other worlds. A voice came then, not from the mirror, but from the air itself. Soft, ancient, kind. "You have remembered," it said. "Now go, and help others remember too." Lily returned to the whisper's echo with tears in her eyes and peace in her chest. She said nothing to Rael. She did not need to. He saw it in her face. When they landed back on the Imperial world, the Empress was waiting. She did not speak. She simply opened her arms, and Lily, for the first time since leaving Earth, let herself be held. In the weeks that followed, Lily changed nothing outwardly. She still lived in her small house. She still taught children. She still baked bread that cracked when it cooled. But something had shifted inside her. She no longer felt like a stranger. She belonged. Not because she had earned it, but because she had always been part of the story. Then came the message from Earth. It was short, sent through a fragile relay station near Pluto. "They are listening now. Tell them we are ready to learn." It was signed by the United Earth Council, the same group that had once called her a traitor for leaving, for trusting aliens, for believing in peace over power. Lily showed it to the Empress. "They fear what they do not understand," the Empress said, "but fear can turn to curiosity, and curiosity to trust." "I want to go back," Lily said. "Then go," the Empress replied. "But know this, you are not returning as a human among aliens. You are returning as a bridge. And bridges do not choose sides. They connect them." The Aurora's tear was prepared for the long journey home. This time it carried more than Lily. It carried Zenthari teachers, healers, artists. And it carried gifts. Not weapons or tech, but seeds from the singing tree. recordings of Zenthari lullabies, and a single vial of starlight from the heart of the Empire. Earth had changed. Cities were smaller, greener. Wars had burned themselves out, leaving behind a weary but willing people. When the ship landed in what was once Ohio, a crowd waited, not with guns but with open hands. Among them stood an old woman with silver hair and tired eyes. Lily's mother. They ran to each other. No words, just arms and tears and the sound of two hearts beating in the same rhythm. In the days that followed, Lily did what she did best. She listened. She heard Earth's pain, the guilt, the shame, the hope buried under years of fear. And she shared Zenthari wisdom, not as truth but as possibility. Slowly, carefully, a new chapter began. Human children learned to weave light. Zenthari scholars learned to cry without shame. Farms grew Earth vegetables beside Zenthari glow fruit. And in the center of the new Earth Zenthari campus, a sapling was planted, its leaves already chiming in the wind. Lily walked among them all, barefoot, the blade of Elthar now resting in a stone pedestal in the garden, not as a weapon but as a reminder. They said only royals could touch the blade, but the blade knew better. It knew that the truest royalty was found in kindness, in courage, in the quiet act of showing up with an open heart. And Lily Carter, the girl from Ohio who missed her dog and liked her coffee too strong, had more royalty in her little finger than all the thrones in the galaxy. She never ruled. She never commanded. She simply cared. And in the end, that was enough to change everything. After Lily was gone, the silence she left behind was not empty. It was full of her. The tree in Ohio chimed every dawn, its silver leaves whispering stories to those who sat beneath it. Children came with notebooks and open hearts, writing down what the wind seemed to say. Elders came to remember. Strangers came to heal. And always someone left a pair of sandals by the roots, not as a shrine, but as a promise. I am ready to walk barefoot too. For a long time, no one touched the stone where the blade of Elthar once stood. It sat in the garden smooth and quiet like a sleeping stone, but the galaxy kept turning and new voices rose. Among them was a girl named Elena. She was 12, born after Lily's time, with wild curls and eyes that saw too much. She lived on a border world where humans and Zenthari shared water wells and schoolyards. Her mother was a botanist. Her father, a Zenthari poet. She spoke both languages before she could tie her shoes. Elena did not believe in heroes. Lily wasn't magic, she told her friends. She just cared when others looked away. But deep down, Elena wished she could have met her, one rainy afternoon. While helping rebuild the old listening station on Europa, Elena found something buried in the ice, not a spiral, but a seed. Small, black, warm to the touch. It pulsed once in her palm like a heartbeat. She took it to Elder Voss, now so old his body glowed like a dying star. He held the seed gently. "This is a memory seed," he said, "planted by those who came before the Zenthari, before humans. It holds a truth the universe is ready to hear again." "What truth?" Elena asked. "That kindness is not weakness. It is the strongest force there is." The seed needed planting, not in soil, but in a place where hope had been broken. They chose Mars. Once a dead world, now half revived with green valleys and glass domes, Mars still carried scars. Generations ago, it had been a battlefield. Ruins of war machines lay half buried in red sand. Some said the ground there refused to grow anything but thorns. Elena went alone. She wore no uniform, no badge, just a simple tunic and bare feet, because Lily had shown that truth walks without shoes. She carried the seed in a pouch made of singing tree leaves. When she reached the heart of the old war zone, the wind howled like a ghost. The sand stung her skin, but she knelt, dug a small hole with her hands and placed the seed inside. Then she did not chant, did not pray. She simply sat and talked to it. She told it about her dog who got lost and came back 3 days later covered in mud. She told it about her Zenthari grandfather, teaching her to count stars in 2 languages. She told it about the time she shared her lunch with a lonely boy who didn't speak any language yet. As she spoke, the ground grew warm. A shoot pushed through the red sand. Not green but gold. It grew fast, twisting into a slender sapling with leaves that shimmered like liquid sunlight. Within hours, its branches spread wide, and from them hung tiny bells that rang not with wind, but with feeling. When someone felt joy, the bells chimed softly. When someone wept nearby, they rang deeper like a lullaby. News spread. People came. Not to study, not to claim, but to sit. On the first full moon after the tree bloomed, a strange thing happened. The stone in Lily's garden on Earth cracked open. From it rose a new blade, not of light or crystal, but of woven roots and starlight. It did not hum. It breathed. Elena stood before it, heart pounding. She reached out. Her fingers brushed the hilt. Nothing exploded. No golden light, no song. Just a quiet warmth like holding a friend's hand. The blade had chosen again. Not a warrior. Not a royal. Just a girl who believed in lunchboxes and lost dogs and the power of showing up. The Xanthari Empress, now a young woman named Lyra, granddaughter of Silva, came to Mars herself. She did not wear a crown. She carried a watering can. Lily started something, she said to Elena. You get to keep it growing. Elena nodded. I don't want to be a hero. Good, Lyra smiled. Heroes are lonely. You're going to build a garden. And so she did. With help from students, farmers, poets, and even former soldiers, Elena turned the war-scarred plains of Mars into the Garden of Echoes. Not a monument. Not a fortress. Just a place where anyone could come and remember that they mattered. The trees' bells rang every day, sometimes in joy, sometimes in sorrow. Always in truth. Years passed. Elena grew. Her hair grayed. Her hands grew rough from planting, but her feet stayed bare even in snow. One evening, as she sat beneath the golden tree, a young boy approached. He couldn't have been more than 8. He held a broken toy, a small robot with one eye missing. It won't work anymore, he whispered, tears in his eyes. Elena patted the ground beside her. Sit. He did. My name's Jude, he said. I'm Elena. They sat in silence for a while. Then Elena said, You know, Lily once had a broken robot too. Really? Yep, and she didn't fix it right away. She just held it. Because sometimes things break and that's okay. What matters is that you care enough to hold them. Jude wiped his eyes. I care. Then it's not really broken, Elena said. It's just waiting. The boy smiled. That night, the bells of the tree rang softly like a lullaby for the whole world. Back on Earth, in Lily's old garden, the stone blade stood quiet. But if you pressed your ear to it, you could hear something, a whisper, faint but clear. Keep going. And they did. Generation after generation, someone would rise, not with a sword, but with a seed. Not with a shout, but with a song. Not with a crown, but with bare feet on sacred ground. They said only royals could touch the blade. But the blade knew better. It knew that royalty was not in bloodlines, but in choices. In the choice to kneel beside a crying child. In the choice to plant a seed in broken ground. In the choice to believe that kindness could heal even the deepest scar. Lily had shown the way. Elena had walked it. And now Jude, with his broken robot and his quiet heart, would carry it forward. The story never ended. It simply passed from hand to hand, like a seed, like a song. Like a promise whispered under a chiming tree. You are enough, just as you are. Barefoot, brave, and full of care. They said only royals could touch the blade. The human did it barefoot. The grand hall of the Xanthari Empire glowed under twin suns that poured through high crystal domes. Tall pillars of living stone rose like ancient trees, their surfaces pulsing with soft blue light. In the center of the hall floated the blade of Aelthar, an ancient weapon older than memory, said to awaken only for those of royal blood. For 10,000 years, no one had touched it without dying on the spot. Only the Empress or her direct heirs were allowed even to look upon it without blinders. Yet there she stood, Lily Carter, a human woman from Earth, barefoot on the cool black floor, wearing a simple gray jumpsuit stained with engine grease and stardust. She was not a warrior, not a diplomat, not even a guest of honor. She was a xenolinguist, brought aboard the Imperial flagship to translate old Xanthari texts for the Cultural Exchange Program. She had no rank, no title, no claim to power, and yet against every law, every warning, every instinct screaming in her mind, she walked toward the blade. The Xanthari nobles watched in frozen silence. Their tall, slender bodies stood stiff, their silver eyes wide with shock. Their skin shimmered like moonlit pearl, and their long fingers trembled at their sides. Whispers moved through the crowd like wind through dry grass. She is not of blood, one hissed. The blade will burn her to ash, another whispered. This is sacrilege. But Lily kept walking. It had not been her plan. It started that morning in the lower archives where she was decoding a crumbling scroll covered in glyphs. No one had read in centuries. As she traced the symbols with her stylus, one phrase kept repeating, "Only the worthy may wake the flame, not the crowned." She frowned. That made no sense. Everyone knew only royals could wield the blade. She asked Elder Voss, the keeper of relics, what it meant. He stiffened, his voice low and sharp. "That is forbidden knowledge. Speak of it again and you will be confined to your quarters." But Lily could not forget it. The word stuck in her mind like a burr. That night, unable to sleep in her narrow bunk, she wandered the silent corridors of the ship. Her bare feet made no sound on the smooth floor. She followed a strange pull in her chest, turning left when logic said right, descending spiral stairwells that coiled like seashells, until she stood before the sealed doors of the Hall of Echoes, the chamber where the blade rested. The doors opened without sound. No guards, no alarms. It was as if the ship itself had stepped aside for her. Now standing before the blade, Lily felt her breath catch. It was not metal. It was something alive. A core of swirling blue light wrapped in layers of shifting crystal that moved like liquid. It hovered above a pedestal of black stone, humming softly as if dreaming. She reached out. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Some nobles turned away, bracing for the explosion of divine wrath they had been taught to expect. Others watched with narrowed eyes, waiting for her to burst into flame. But nothing happened. Her fingers brushed the hilt. The moment her skin made contact, the hall erupted in golden light. Not fire, not destruction, but a wave of warm radiance that wrapped around Lily like a cloak. The hum deepened into a song, ancient and wordless, vibrating through the bones of everyone present. The Zenthari fell to their knees, not in fear but in awe. Even Elder Voss bowed his head, tears tracing silver paths down his cheeks. For the first time in 10,000 years, the blade of Aelthar had chosen. Confusion turned to chaos. Voices rose in protest and praise. "She is human," cried Lord Kale, his voice sharp with outrage. "Humans have only one heart. They do not even understand honor." Others argued back. "The blade does not lie," insisted Lady Myra, her voice trembling. "If it chose her, then the old words are true." Lily stood frozen, the blade warm in her hand. Images flooded her mind, stars being born, empires rising and falling. A great war fought not with weapons but with silence. She saw a darkness spreading across the galaxy, swallowing worlds whole, leaving only echoes behind. And in the center of it all, a single voice calling for help. Not in Zenthari, not in any known language, but in English, her language. The vision faded as quickly as it came. She swayed on her feet but did not drop the blade. It felt as if it belonged there, as if it had been waiting for her all along. Commander Rail, head of the Imperial Guard, stepped forward. His armor gleamed like ice and his expression was unreadable. "Human," he said, his voice low but clear. "You have broken sacred law. Yet the blade accepts you. Explain yourself," Lily swallowed. Her throat was dry but her voice came out steady. "I didn't come here to break anything. I heard a voice. Not with my ears, with my mind. It led me here, and when I touched the blade, it showed me something. A threat, something coming, and it needs us, Zenthari and humans, to stop it." Murmurs spread again, but this time with less anger, more curiosity. Elder Voss rose slowly. "The prophecy of the twin flames speaks of a stranger from the outer rim, one who walks without shoes upon the path of truth. It says this one will hold the blade not by birth but by spirit. We assumed it meant a Zenthari exile, but perhaps we were wrong." Commander Rail studied Lily for a long moment. Then to everyone's shock he knelt. "If the blade has chosen, then I serve its will. And yours, wielder." One by one, the others followed. Even Lord Kale, though his jaw clenched tight, lowered himself to one knee. Lily looked down at the blade, then at the sea of bowed heads. She was just Lily Carter from Ohio. She liked coffee too strong, hated space rations, and still missed her dog back home. She never wanted to be a hero. But the blade hummed softly in her grip, as if whispering, "You already are." In the days that followed, the Zenthari Empire changed. The High Council, once rigid and isolationist, opened its doors to human envoys. Scientists from Earth were invited to study Zenthari tech, and Zenthari scholars began learning human history. Lily, now called the Barefoot Sovereign in hushed tones, worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between species. She wore no crown, carried no scepter, only the blade which never left her side. But the real test came 3 weeks later. A distress signal crackled through deep space comms. It came from the edge of known territory, from a human colony ship named the Horizon Light. The message was fragmented but clear enough. They are here. The silent ones. They took the children. They do not speak. They do not blink. Lily recognized the description instantly. It matched the darkness from her vision. Without hesitation, she boarded the Imperial warship Aurora's Tear, now under her command. Commander Rail stood at her side, his loyalty unshaken. "You are not trained for battle," he said gently. "Maybe not," she replied, strapping the blade to her hip. "But I know what they're after, and I know how to stop them." The journey took 6 days. When they arrived, the colony was gone. Not destroyed, erased. Buildings, trees, even the soil had vanished, leaving only a perfect circle of bare rock. In the center floated a single object, a black sphere, smooth and featureless. As the Aurora's Tear approached, the sphere pulsed. Lily stepped onto the surface alone, barefoot again, as if instinct told her that shoes would muffle the truth. The sphere hovered before her, silent. Then it spoke, not in words but in feeling. It showed her its purpose: to consume all noise, all chaos, all emotion, to bring perfect silence to the universe. It saw life as a flaw, a scream in the void that needed silencing, and it saw her as the last obstacle. The blade flared in her hand. Light met shadow in a silent clash that bent space itself. Lily did not fight with strength but with memory, of laughter, of songs, of a dog barking at the mailman, of her mother's voice saying goodnight. She poured every human sound, every imperfect, beautiful noise into the blade. The sphere shuddered. Cracks appeared on its surface. Then, with a sound like a sigh, it shattered into dust. Back on the Aurora's Tear, Commander Rail found her sitting on the deck, exhausted but smiling. "You saved us," he said. "We saved each other," she corrected. News of the victory spread fast. Humans and Xanthari alike began to see each other not as strangers but as partners. Lily never asked for fame, but it found her anyway. Statues were not built, but stories were told, in classrooms, in starports, in quiet corners of distant worlds. They said only royals could touch the blade. But the blade knew better. It knew that worth was not in blood, but in heart, and Lily Carter, barefoot and brave, had the biggest heart of all. The silence after the sphere shattered was deeper than space itself. Lily sat on the scorched rock of the vanished colony, her bare feet curled against the cold ground. The blade of Aelthar resting across her knees like a sleeping child. Commander Rail stood a few steps behind her, silent, giving her room to breathe. He had seen emperors fall and stars die, but nothing had prepared him for the way a human woman from a backwater world had faced the void and made it flinch. Back aboard the Aurora's Tear, the crew moved differently. They no longer looked at Lily with suspicion or pity. They watched her with something close to reverence. Even the Xanthari engineers, who once scoffed at human tech as clumsy fire toys, now asked her questions about Earth music, about human dreams, about why people cried when they were happy. Lily answered as best she could, her voice soft, her words simple. She never claimed to be special. She just said she listened, but the galaxy was not done with her. 3 days after their return to Imperial space, a new signal arrived, not a distress call but a summons. It came from the High Throne itself. Empress Silva, ruler of the Xanthari Empire for over 200 cycles, had awoken from her long meditation. She had heard what happened, and she demanded to see the human who touched the blade. Lily's stomach twisted. She had never met the Empress. No outsider had in over a century. The Empress was said to dwell in the heart of the living star, a place where time bent and thoughts became real. To be called there was either the highest honor or the final judgment. Commander Rael prepared the royal shuttle without a word. He gave Lily a new jumpsuit, deep blue, woven with threads that shimmered like starlight. "It is traditional," he said, "but you may keep your feet bare if you wish." She nodded. "I think the blade likes it that way." The journey to the heart of the star took less than an hour, though it felt like years. The shuttle passed through layers of plasma and light, each ring humming with ancient songs. Finally, it landed on a platform of white crystal that floated in endless golden air. Before her stood a single archway made of woven light. Beyond it, the Empress waited. Lily walked through alone. The chamber was empty except for a woman seated on a simple stone bench. She looked young, no older than Lily, but her eyes held galaxies. Her silver hair fell like liquid moonlight, and her skin glowed faintly as if lit from within. She wore no crown, no robes, only a plain white tunic. "You are smaller than I imagined," the Empress said. Her voice was calm, like wind over water. "So are you," Lily replied before she could stop herself. A flicker of surprise crossed the Empress's face. Then slowly she smiled. "You speak without fear. That is rare." "I'm scared," Lily admitted. "But fear doesn't mean silence." The Empress gestured to the space beside her. "Sit," Lily did. The blade hummed softly at her side, but it did not flare. It recognized the Empress, not as a threat but as kin. "They say you destroyed the Silent Ones," the Empress said. "I didn't destroy them," Lily corrected. "I reminded them that silence isn't peace. Peace has laughter in it, has crying, has noise." The Empress was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "The blade chose you because you understand that life is messy." We Xanthari forgot. We built perfect cities, perfect laws, perfect silence. We thought order was wisdom. But the universe is not perfect, it is wild, and beautiful because of it. She turned to Lily. "You are not a queen. You are not a warrior. You are a listener. And that is rarer than royalty." Lily blinked. "What do I do now?" "You teach us," the Empress said simply. "Not with lectures. Not with commands. Just by being. Walk among us. Speak your truth. Let us remember what it means to feel." When Lily returned to the Aurora's tier, she carried no orders, no titles, no new powers, only a quiet understanding. Weeks passed. She visited Xanthari schools not as a guest but as a student. She learned their songs, their dances, their quiet ways of grieving. In return, she taught them human things. How to bake bread that cracked when it cooled. How to tell jokes that made no sense but made you laugh anyway. How to hold someone's hand when words failed. But peace never lasts long. Rumors began to spread. Far beyond the Empire's borders, in the dead zones between galaxies, something stirred. Not the Silent Ones this time. Something older. Something that had watched the blade awaken and did not like what it saw. Scouts returned with damaged ships and haunted eyes. They spoke of a fleet made of bone and shadow, sailing on rivers of frozen time. They called it the Hollow Fleet. And at its center floated a throne carved from the skull of a dead god. On that throne sat a being known only as the Weaver. The Weaver did not seek silence. It sought control. It wove fate like thread, pulling lives into patterns of its own design. It had tried to claim the blade of Elthar once long ago and failed. Now it knew the blade had a new wielder, and it would not fail again. Lily felt it before anyone else, a tug in her chest like a string being pulled too tight. The blade grew cold in her hands. Dreams came to her at night. Visions of cities turned to puppets, of people moving in perfect unison, their eyes empty, their mouths sewn shut with silver thread. She told Commander Rail. He did not doubt her. "We cannot fight fate," he said grimly. "Maybe not," Lily replied, "but we can cut the thread." The Xanthari High Council argued for days. Some wanted to hide the blade, to seal it away again. Others wanted to strike first, to launch the full might of the Imperial Armada. But Elder Voss, now one of Lily's closest allies, spoke with quiet authority. The blade did not choose war. It chose a human who bakes bread and misses her dog. Trust her. So they prepared, not for battle, but for something stranger. Lily asked for 3 things: a ship that could sail between dimensions, a seed from the oldest tree in the Empire, and a song. Not any song. The first song ever sung by the Xanthari people, the one that named the stars. They gave her all 3. The ship, named the Whisper's Echo, was small and sleek, built not for weapons but for slipping through cracks in reality. The seed pulsed with green light in Lily's palm, and the song. The song was given to her by a child, whispered into her ear during a visit to a nursery. "It's for when you get lost," the child said. Lily tucked it into her heart. The journey into the dead zones was unlike anything she had known. Space here was thin, like worn fabric. Stars flickered like dying candles. Time stuttered. Sometimes they arrived before they left. Sometimes they saw themselves in the distance waving or weeping. Then they saw it, the Hollow Fleet. It stretched across the void like a scar. Ships of bone drifted in perfect formation. Their sails made of skin stretched over ribs. At the center, the throne pulsed with dark energy, and on it sat the Weaver. It had no true form. It shifted, sometimes a woman, sometimes a swarm of moths, sometimes a storm of needles. But its eyes were always the same, 2 black holes that swallowed light. "You are not supposed to be here," it hissed. its voice made of 1,000 whispers. "You are a mistake, a loose thread." Lily stood on the deck of the Whisper's Echo, barefoot, the blade in one hand, the seed in the other. "Maybe," she said. "But loose threads are how you unravel a knot." The weaver laughed, a sound like tearing silk. "You think your little blade can cut fate?" "I don't need to cut fate," Lily said. "I just need to remind it that people get to choose." She planted the seed on the deck. It sprouted instantly, growing into a small tree with silver leaves that chimed in the void. Then she began to sing, not loudly, not bravely, just softly, like she was singing to a child at bedtime. The first song, the naming song. The weaver screamed, because the song was not about control. It was about wonder, about looking up at the sky and saying, "What is that bright thing?" It was the sound of freedom. The hollow fleet shuddered. The bone ships cracked. The silver threads binding the puppets snapped one by one. The weaver reached for Lily, its fingers stretching like shadows. But the blade flared, not with light but with sound. Every laugh, every cry, every whispered, "I love you," from every human who ever lived. The weaver unraveled, not with a bang, but with a sigh. Its form dissolved into dust and the throne crumbled into ash. The hollow fleet drifted apart, empty shells returning to the dark. Back on the Whisper's Echo, Lily sank to her knees, exhausted. The tree beside her bloomed with white flowers that smelled like rain. Commander Rail helped her up. "You did it again," he said, awe in his voice. "We did it," she corrected. When they returned, the Empire celebrated. But Lily did not join the feasts. She went to the gardens of the Imperial Palace and planted the tree. It grew fast, its roots weaving into the heart of the world. People came from all over to sit beneath its branches. They told stories. They argued. They cried. They laughed. And Lily sat among them, barefoot, the blade resting beside her. Quiet now. For the first time in centuries, the Zenthari remembered how to be alive. And it all started because a human woman walked into a forbidden hall with nothing but courage and bare feet. They said only, royals could touch the blade. But the blade knew better. It knew that true power was not in ruling, but in caring. And Lily Carter cared more than anyone they had ever known.